Welcome, everybody. We're ready to get started. So we're right at 11:15, and I want to give our keynote, Dr. Donna Beegle, as much time to share her message as possible. So I will just say that I have the great pleasure to introduce a friend and a friend to UAGC that we have worked with for, I would say, almost 10 years at this point. And having Dr. Beegle here to share her inspiring message with us, I think is really aligned to what is the foundation of culture of care, and that's caring for our students. But I'm just going to give, Donna, it was hard to break your bio into a brief introduction, but I'm going to give it a shot. So I will say that Donna's story is nothing short of extraordinary. She grew up in generational poverty and was facing homelessness for the first 26 years of her life. And she defied the odds that were stacked against her. At just 15, she left school to get married, and by 25, she found herself a single mother with minimal education and few marketable job skills. However, with unwavering determination and the support of organizations in her community, she was able to chart a path towards a college degree. Her expertise has been sought after by colleges nationwide, including her collaboration with institutions like Amarillo College. She was recognized as our Amarillo College was recognized as the 2023 Aspen College of the Year. So Dr. Beegle equips faculty and staff with poverty competencies, empowering them to make a tangible difference in the lives of students impacted by poverty. So in recognition of her outstanding contributions, Portland State University has honored Dr. Beegle by naming classrooms in her honor. Her mantra, "I know too much to be silent," encapsulates her tireless advocacy for social justice and educational opportunity for all. So in summary, Dr. Donna Beagle's journey from poverty to prominence epitomizes the transformative power of education and advocacy. Her work with the Culture of Care initiative at UAGC exemplifies her commitment to creating inclusive, responsive, and poverty-informed approaches that uplift individuals and communities alike. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Donna.
Thank you, Tony. And thank you, everyone. I want to just start out by honestly, genuinely saying thank you. Thank you for choosing to be in a field where every single day, every single interaction, you get this incredible opportunity to leave students in a better place than you found them. I did grow up in generational poverty, and not any of my family members went past 8th grade. And the meaning of educations and the messages about education to us were we weren't college material. We weren't education material. All through school, I didn't know the words that my teachers would use. And I would ask, I think people start out askers, children start out askers, but they get taught not to ask. They get ridiculed and humiliated and made fun of for not knowing what it seems everybody else knows. But my teachers in elementary school, middle school, whenever I would say, what does a word mean? They would equate that with IQ very often. She's not very bright. She doesn't know these words. Or they would send me to the dictionary to look up the words. And there I would find more words that I didn't know. And that not a human being in my environment could say, this is what this word means. When I entered community college at age 26 to get my GED, I entered a world of words I had never heard before. And I know you have students like that. I know you have students who are in those shoes. It's unfamiliar vocabulary, examples that are being used. My teachers would explain things, and this is such an important concept to realize we use examples from our life experience. So if you grow up in a different context from your students and you're using examples from things that are around you, you may be having this kind of thing happen in terms of the communication. In my research with people in the crisis of poverty, 92% reported when they leave a helping professional, that could be an educator, somebody in the health system, justice system, but when they leave a helping professional, they have no idea what to do next. And I suspect you've seen that as well, where you give a student some instructions and they really, it's just not clear. You can see that it's not clear what they're supposed to do. And my teachers would give me assignments and I wouldn't do anything. And they would attribute that to I was deviant. But the truth was I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what a good one looked like. I didn't know how to put it together. And that could be a good paper, a good project. So then the other students would bring in their papers or projects or whatever the assignment was. And I would look at it and go, oh, that's what we were supposed to do? I could have probably done that. But I needed to see the finished product. Like, what does it look like when it's all done? And then how does it go together? And a lot of times when I'm working with K-12 and higher ed, I always say, show your students what a good one looks like. And often I'll hear people say, well, that would be cheating. We can't do that. And my response to that is, you think middle-class people aren't showing their kids, the adults in their world, what a good one looks like? I taught public speaking for 8 years at Portland State University. You know, if my kids had a speech to give, I was right in there going, that transition is not working for me. But for some people, that help is built in, others not so much. So examples we use have to be relevant. This is learning theory. If we're not using examples people can relate to, they can't grab the knowledge that we're sharing. So part of the way I made it through the associate's degree is I had a brother in prison. I have 5 brothers. I'm actually the only family member who's not been incarcerated. And I tell people it's not because I didn't break the law. Poverty doesn't always allow humans to be good. You're doing what you see possible with the experiences and exposures that you had. And it's not to condone that, but it's to understand it so that we give people authentic opportunities to have different choices they can make. And education is a big part of that. So my brother, Wayne, he spent 12 years in prison reading. So I'm at the community college. I don't know the words people are using. I had an instructor talking about Watergate, and I was like, what is that Watergate thing? And he said, how could you not know this? Aren't you American? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know what everybody else just seems to know. I guess I'm stupid. And that is what a lot of students come into our classrooms with, that label of I'm stupid because I don't know middle class stuff. And a lot of times that's exactly what we measure in terms of IQ. I said ain't every other word. I didn't know when to say seen or saw, or how those people know when to say gone or went. I didn't know I wasn't speaking middle class sentence structure, but I knew people couldn't hear me because of the way I talked. It was equated to my IQ. And so in their subconscious mind, I was written off as not somebody who could learn. I wasn't very bright. And I got those messages so strong. So my brother, I would write him letters when he was in prison. And I would say, I got a test in 3 weeks in my history class. Find out everything you can. This is what we're studying. And he would go to the prison library. He would look up the information and he would write me sometimes 25-page letters. Donna, remember we were in that berry camp and we were picking berries? And that's kind of what they're talking about here. And he would use familiar vocabulary. I used to say familiar. He would use examples from our childhood so I could grab that knowledge, and I'm acing my test. So I have a really high GPA, but I can't read my textbooks. And the professors and the instructors at the community college would just send me to read books or articles that my people didn't write. And I didn't know, and I had nobody to ask. And that's an important concept for breaking poverty barriers to education, is to understand the isolation of poverty perpetuates it. You just think about, who do middle-class people sit down to dinner with? So I get to University of Portland at age 28, and I meet Dr. Bob Fulford, and this was a huge part of my journey. At this point, I'm still saying ain't. I don't know so much. I don't know. I have so many knowledge gaps because our family were migrant labor workers. I was born in West Phoenix, Arizona, and we would leave Arizona. We'd pick oranges and grapefruits in Arizona, and then we go into California for cherries, into Oregon, and we do moss and pine cones and bark or whatever was growing, and then we go into Washington. I actually had my honeymoon at 15 in a cherry field in Washington State. So that was kind of our migrant. So we didn't have that K-12 base. And when we were in school, we were going to the schools middle-class people would never send their kids to. And this is a really pivotal piece that I want to share with you. Equality is based on the idea that we all start the same. And that's what we teach. Everyone starts the same. Opportunities are out there if you really want them. So I want you to hold this question in your mind. If that were true, you could not call up a real estate agent in almost any place in America and say, hey, where are your good schools? So as long as we can ask that question, we know not everyone starts the same. So we can't expect our students as they're coming in our doors, virtually or in person, to have had the same base, the same knowledge base. But that doesn't mean they can't get it. What students know when you get them isn't all they can know. It's simply what they have been exposed to in a meaningful and relevant way. So say it again, say it another way. Ask, what'd you hear me say? And always listen first. Listen first. Help me understand. What would you say about this? How do you see this? And get from your students their perspectives, because that tells you where you need to work. And that can really be helpful for students. But Dr. Bob Fulford at the University of Portland, he founded the communication department and also the journalism department there. And he said to me, I want to help you learn a second language. And I'm 28. I got a bad perm from my cousin Wanda. I'm on welfare. I got 2 kids. We're evicted. I'm thinking, second language, what? And he said, Donna, when middle-class people speak, they use a very specific sentence structure. And they use vocabulary that they have heard since they were in the womb. He said, and it's spoken by people who know those words. And they're using examples and talking about things they're around all the time. Because of the segregation by social class in America, you're not going to have those kinds of interactions. I tell people at 15, I never knew a soul who used education to earn a living or who benefited from education. So not knowing anyone who's been through this foreign land, who knows the language of this foreign land, sets you up for being labeled not very bright. So I couldn't write a complete sentence at 26. I thought the whole page was a paragraph. I had no grounded understanding of academic world. And it took people. And I love the culture of care. But we have to be cautious about what care means. I'm doing some extensive work with the state of Louisiana, Department of Children and Family Services. They're doing my poverty competency assessment and action planning process. So we're going in and looking at policy. Because I studied policy in my doctoral program, policies are meant to serve. Policies that punish are called bad policy. So we have to begin looking at policies that punish or exclude students and say, who is this really serving? And then put sacred cows on the table. This is the way we've always done it. It's the way we've got to do it now. Move away from that to, is it working? Is it truly working for students who are living in the crisis of poverty? So Louisiana, they've gone through, I've trained 3,500 state employees, 350 state leaders. I've been around the state doing focus groups with community partners, with people who are end users of Department of Human Service, like they use food stamps or they are in the child welfare system. And I've put together a 160-page report for what's working really well and what are those areas for growth. And in the collection of that data, I asked the question, and I will ask all of you to respond to this question. How many of you care about the students who are impacted by that evil villain poverty? Just virtual hand or real hand, how many of you care? Overwhelmingly, the folks who responded to that question, 96% said we care. But then when I got into the qualitative data, well, I care if they're doing what I tell them to do. I care if they if they're not sex offenders. I care if they're have the right values, morals. So I want you to be able to examine in your subconscious mind, because our subconscious mind responds before our conscious mind. What does someone have to do for you to unconditionally care? For you to unconditionally care, because conditional caring won't help students in poverty. The stereotypes, the myths, the assumptions that are implanted in our subconscious mind will get in the way. Well, if they would just do what I would do. So, for example, my parents never went to a school conference. What do we say about those parents? They don't care. They don't love their kids. My mom would say, I ain't going in there and make a fool out of myself. Those people want to talk about school. I don't know anything about school. So we project motive onto people based on what we would do in that situation. Well, if I had an assignment, I would do it. What I teach is seek to know the why. If a student isn't doing their assignments, if they're not showing up, seek to know the why. There's a why behind every behavior. And if we take the time to understand, help me understand what's in your way, and ask what would be helpful to you. Because really, if you start studying poverty, I've studied the history of poverty, United States of America, and what I know is the number one metaphor used in the literature is war. So imagine your students logging in for a class with the bullets of poverty flying, eviction, hunger, cars being towed, not enough food, all of that's hitting them. And that's noisy. So having someone who takes the time to listen to what's in the way and works with you to remove any poverty barrier that can be removed, that changes the game. So Dr. Fulford, he began helping me learn middle-class words, he had me read the newspaper. And I said, I've never read a newspaper. I don't know how to read the newspaper. I don't know the words in there. I don't know what they're talking about. And he said, circle everything you don't know and bring it to my office. So I would go in there with this big newspaper, all these words circled and things they were talking about. And he would explain it to me until I understood it. He hired me to be a TA, teaching assistant, which is my first ever title. And he said, all I want you to do is go through the stack of student papers and circle all of the grammatical errors. And I was like, you trust me? Nobody had ever given me any kind of responsibility or value like that. And I tried so hard to find the grammatical errors in those papers. I learned to write. And I also realized I could write better than some of the University of Portland students. I thought they were perfect and they didn't make mistakes, but some of them, I could write better than them. And seeing that gave me confidence as well. He had me begin to really capture like the context of words, because I didn't have that. And he later told me that his colleagues at the university gave him a lot of flack. And they said things like, if she doesn't have this stuff by now, she doesn't belong on campus. So I want to pause again and ask you to go into your subconscious mind. Who belongs in your classroom? If you have a fixed idea of IQ, you're not going to do well with students in poverty. But if you have the belief that what they know, that growth mindset, what they know now isn't all they can know. If you have a let's get you going, Dr. Fulford would say, I would just tell people I go to work every day to educate. And that for Donna meant I had to include this piece. So when I got my bachelor's, I got close to my bachelor's degree, and I had people saying to me, you could get a master's degree. And I was like, no way, that is for smart people. No way I could do that. Because it takes a long time to undo all of that programming from the messages of you're not smart, you don't look right, you don't talk right, you don't have the right family, you don't eat the right food, you're just wrong. So I'm like, no way I could ever do that. And my counselor at the time, he's like, Donna, you have a 391 at University of Portland. If you wanted a master's, you could get one. And I said, no, I can't. I'm not smart. And he said, Donna, how could that be? You have a 391. I said, because my professors like me. And he said, well, they're not going to jeopardize their personal careers for you. And I'm thinking, well, why not? But it wasn't enough to have somebody tell me I could get a master's degree. What it took was me being around people who had master's degrees and being able to have conversations with them. And I would talk to people and I'd say, so what did you study? And they go, oh, I have a master's in some subject. And I'd have a little conversation with them and I'd be thinking, you have a master's? I can get a master's. Because it was just realizing they were just people. It was demystifying this whole idea that education is only for the smart people. And that's what you're taught. You're taught that you're not smart. So we got to help our students rebuild that hope and confidence. And we do that using strengths perspective. Strengths perspective says, believe in the unknown potential of every student you have. You don't know where they're going to go. As I got my bachelor's, my master's, finished my doctoral coursework, Dr. Fulford would say, did I achieve my goal? And then he would say, and then some. But I would not be able to do the work that I do, to have had the experiences that I've had, if it weren't for people who truly unconditionally cared. Suspended judgment, did not just give me the benefit of the doubt that what I'm doing is what I need to be doing in that war zone, and helping to arm me with the communication and the learning that I needed to achieve my doctorate. So I got my GED at 26, and 10 years later, my doctorate in educational leadership. And there are people all throughout that journey who unconditionally cared, who were relentless and persistent and consistent and would not give up on me. So I want to take this word caring for a minute and just go through some words that I put with it. So C is for communicate. Communicate means seek to know the why. Use familiar vocabulary. State what you may perceive as obvious. It may not be obvious to your students living in the crisis of poverty. Explain the expectations. What does it look and feel like? Walk them through it. You don't have to do it for them, but do it with them. And then advocate, A for advocate. Use your title, use your wisdom and expertise to advocate and navigate and remove any poverty barrier that can be removed. R, relate. Build meaningful connections with your students in the crisis of poverty. I teach identification theory. Scholar Kenneth Burke says when you identify with your students, they see how you're like them and you see how they're like you. And that requires sharing something about yourself that helps them see you're just a person. You're just a person who's had different experiences and exposures, but you have more in common with any human being than you do anything else on the planet. So finding that common ground. And then include. Adult learning theory says when you include students in their learning, I mean, you know where they've got to get to, but there's a lot of ways to get there. Ask them how they would like to learn. Do they want to talk about it? Do they want to create something? How would they like to learn? Let them be part of that learning journey. And then never failing. NASA sends people to space and they say, failure is not an option. Let's not let it be on this campus. Let's have you be revolutionary and say, we're not going to allow our students to fail. We're going to build in whatever capacity with whatever's in our hands, supports that's in our hands, and then we're going to think about who else we might need to involve to remove the obstacles poverty presents to higher education. And then the last one, just that gratefulness that you get this incredible privilege of each time you interact with a student. You not only impact that student, it ripples out into their families. I have 2 brothers now who have bachelor's degrees. I have cousins one cousin came to live with me at 15, unable to read. Most of our family members not literate, grew up with illiterate parents. By 19, she had her associate's degree. She got her bachelor's, her master's. Then she texts me, hi, I've been accepted into the doctoral program. My kids, if you look at statistics for generational poverty, 83% of the children born into generational poverty are not expected to get out unless we do something different, unless we see where they are and see poverty as the problem, not the students. What they know now isn't all they can know. And that is just life-changing. My son, not too long ago, said, Mom, should be only about 14 years, I'll have a doctorate. His dad dropped out of 7th grade. I dropped out of 9th. You have the power. Unconditional caring. Thank you so much for having me today. It's always an honor to work with you.